Well, to help us unpack all of this, we're now joined in studio by Political Analyst Tshepo Kgadima. Thanks so much indeed for joining us. Welcome to the program.
Well, thank you, and good to be here. And let's hope that those that have got lights, the lights will stay on, but I doubt very much.
All right, so it's stage 2 now. Does that point to an improved situation?
Well, effectively, we are dealing with a Eskom that now has got a very volatile energy system. They are not able to really keep it constant in terms of supply and in the state of reliability. We know that they no longer have the reserve margin that they were supposed to have had so that they can continue with the maintenance. But when one asks, well, what is the chief cause of that reserve margin erosion, there are a number of factors. One of them is that inexplicably they have been mothballing power stations that ordinarily they should have kept going. We have to bear this in mind. There has been this talk that the life of a power station is either 40 or 50 years. But actually, technically, there is nothing that stops a power plant's life being extended to 70 or even 80 years. And there are a number of things that they should have been doing, which, well, I think most of us are battling to understand as to why have those important strategic decisions not been taken at the operational and management level as opposed to at the policy level. So what will the meeting today really make us, will it make us any wiser as the nation in terms of what are the core problems, but also are there solutions in place that can ensure that we've got a reliable energy system? That meeting, in my opinion, was not at all required. What was required, perhaps maybe, was for the president to reverse the decision that he took 2 years ago to appoint the board that currently is in place at Eskom and replace with the people that are competent. But there are a number of things that those of us who understand and know the energy markets and know the Eskom really as a business, we think there are certain decisions that they should have taken, which they haven't taken. And there are also other decisions that they are wanting to take, which will be even more catastrophic. If anything, they will just exacerbate what is already a morbid state of Eskom.
All right, so you've talked about a number of things there. Let's unpack some of them. I want to start with the strategic decisions that you talked about. And I'm finding it difficult to balance in my head. You've got staff that have been at the power utility for years and years and years, many of them in senior management. Are we saying that they are unable to carry out that which they know they ought to do because of interference, or where's the disconnect? The board can sit and make decisions, but they're advised by and large by the executive. Is the executive not telling them the right things, or are they being ignored?
Well, everything, particularly in corporates, but as is the case in government or everywhere, everything rises and falls on leadership. And the judgment calls that are taken by the leaders are the ones that can be able to marshal and mobilize the troops, in this case, all the technical staff, the many thousands of workers at Eskom, to be able to move them in a particular direction. But the question becomes, when you have a board that has not been able to demonstrate that it understands the elementary aspects of running a power station, where they talk about, for example, Midubi being a power station that we should expect output from it when it is still the units are being synchronized. And they are confusing unit synchronization of a power station with power plant commissioning. And the two are completely different. So you have to wonder about the comprehension of the board and the executive management in when their interaction and when they are getting feedback from the people who are technical low below. So everything rises and falls on leadership. And the leadership that currently is there has demonstrated amply that they are not qualified whatsoever to be able to run the utility, the nature of a Eskom. And some of the things that they are suggesting to us that they should be the solutions are not the solutions. But if I was given, well, hopefully it won't, but if I was given the privilege of being able to make those judgment calls, what are some of the things that I would do? Would take into account the history of Eskom from inception, that we have what is called a unitary grid, a high voltage grid. So we are very unique in that most of our grid runs about 480 kilovolts, 760 kilowatt because of the span, the geographic span of the country. That in turn limits your options, and effectively it directs you to only considering baseload power instead of intermittent energy, which we know that has been signed off. Interestingly, when the Chief Operations Officer of Eskom, Oberholzer, was taking your people into the NEF center at Eskom, he showed on the dashboard in terms of the power plant performance, but could not show you the performance of the renewables IPPs, because that energy from the renewable IPPs, not even 1 kilowatt hour ever gets to an end user. Do they say they are transmitting it to the grid? Of course. But the grid design means that they should never have gone for that energy. So that is one of the fundamental errors that have been taken. And to hear Minister Mantashe...
rethinking, essentially.
Most certainly.
All right. Okay. So the other thing is, and perhaps we can deal with this quickly, we're going to chat again a little bit later on, but how is it that every end of at this time of the year, we know that it's going to rain? How is it that coal keeps getting wet?
Well, coal should not have been getting wet. The question is that, can you use it when it's in the state of being wet? Well, that it just perhaps maybe means that you have to use a higher fuel oil to be able to combust or ignite, and that itself costs more money. But what they have not done, and 10 years ago, the advice was all there. Some of us have advised them that they should have ensured that they have got the sheds which will cover all the coal stockpile that they would need, at least for a number of days. So we sit here with a situation whereby they not only have minimal days in terms of stockpile, but they also, that stockpile is perpetually under this risk of being, being wet, which is an excuse. But most importantly, we have to bear this in mind. The type of coal, the chemical analysis of the coal that we have, as well as the geophysics of the coal, is such that it's got delayed combustion. So when you look at the Eskom operations, you ask, when they say the power plant is broken down, what is broken down? Largely is the boiler. The boiler breaks down because of the geophysics and the geochemistry, which they seem not to be able to manage. For example, you then have got, because those boilers are calibrated to run at least 1450 degrees Celsius. But some of them are running at 1800 degrees centigrade, and hence we find this situation whereby they've got boiler tube leaks consistently. And unless you fix that, where you can ensure that you have got a direct line of sight on your boiler operations at all the time, and ensure that actually you have a boiler that you could have injected secondary air to control the fire, the rest is actually manageable. But this one problem, they are not able to manage. If I was in charge, what would I have done? Strategically, 5 years ago already, I would have retrofitted the older power stations with older boilers with a new technology that has been proven, has been running for over 10 years, which is called circulating fluidized bed boilers, because they run at lower temperatures. It gives you flexibility of fuel, and most importantly, it would give an answer to the environmental problem in Mpumalanga, where they've got over 2 billion tons of coal discard, which unless it is used in a manner of generating more power at the low cost to Eskom, it becomes an environmental hazard on its own.